Hey everyone, welcome back to Dark Anthology's Little Hope, and I think we are near the end. It feels like we're in the end. I mean, we found all the portraits minus the one, which we know where it's at now, but let's finish this thing. Let's see how this epic story concludes. By the way, I hate that word. I hate that phrase, epic, but here we are. All right, up the stairs we go.
What was that?
Gotta be the girl. Let's go find her.
Interesting that, remember he said for Taylor to find her in the 70s. Now he's going up there with her. When maybe he should have gone up to find her.
Here.
What the hell?
Stay here.
Uh-oh. What is that black stuff? The vinyl records.
Find the goddamn vinyl, will ya?
Andrew, what's going on?
Ooh, that one actually got me.
He knows I was about to confess all to the judge.
No,
Will
wait.
you protect me? You must.
Wait, this isn't right. No way.
I assure all gathered here today that our town will be free of the devil's grasp. Together, by God's grace, little hope will prevail.
Oh boy.
My word on it.
This court is hastily convened, but with good reason. If we are to finally rid ourselves of the evil which has infested Little Hope, then we must act today. I accuse you, Mary, of witchcraft. What say you, Reverend?
He would defend her, wouldn't he?
The evidence, as discovered through my investigation, is beyond question.
Wait, he would burn Mary?
Mary uses her puppet as a familiar to summon and serve the devil.
We have been deceived by a child, by her guise of innocence.
So they killed her?
This puppet was mistakenly used to denounce Tabitha, but it has always belonged to Mary and Mary alone. She allowed her own kin to be executed as she watched in silence.
That is not so. Liar!
Now this tainted child, this creature of Satan has the marrow to accuse me, a man of God, of
So
wrongdoing.
what is Carver's secret, though?
This is crazy. These people have lost their freaking minds.
It was never my intention to bring harm to this town or its people. Can you not help me?
What can I do? If I could do something to stop this, I would, but...
Now in her hour of greatest need,
I don't
this
see
child
how.
of the damned pleads once more for the devil's help.
What's going
I beg the
on?
court's indulgence. Please guide me at this time. I seek your counsel.
Troubled, there's something wrong in this town. Enraged, Carver is evil. I mean, both are true.
No question there's something very wrong here. Right in the heart of this place.
There can be no doubt that Little Hope is afflicted. That darkness has taken hold of our town.
Okay, so I'm
There's
speaking
not a
through
man
him.
or woman here today who does not already know the devil is in our midst. The sole purpose of this court is to remove evil, not indulge it further.
Okay, give me another chance
Our
to speak.
time is not for wasting.
Alright, sorry about that.
You got this all twisted. Mary isn't to blame.
No, wait,
I
what?
made my decision.
No,
I am wrong. I condemn an innocent to die.
the kid has to obey. Hopeful destroy the doll. Wait, what? No! Oh no! Oh no! Destroy the doll!
The only way I can see out of this is to get rid of that damn doll. Destroy that and
The puppet must be cast asunder.
maybe this all goes away.
It is the cause of Mary's affliction. It holds her in its thrall.
Oh no.
Destroy this puppet, and the devil will depart Mary. She will be restored, an innocent child.
Reverend, burn the puppet. Destroy it.
I meant to say that
must
it
not
was
act in
Carver's
haste.
evil.
The girl must face the full consequences of
My
her deeds.
authority is not for
Oh,
questioning.
he's using the
Do
puppet.
as I ask.
He's using the puppet. Well, I don't know. God, I meant to. I said the wrong thing unintentionally, actually.
You did everything you could.
No,
Don't blame yourself.
no, this
None
is
of
wrong.
this is your fault.
All of it's my fault. Stop talking, Taylor, you underdeveloped character. Man, that's not what I meant to say. I meant to say that Carver's evil, then burned
That's
the
it,
puppet.
right?
I figured that if the doll... And then that would be the end of it.
You made the right call.
No.
No way you could have seen what was gonna happen.
True.
That accident is not on you.
Oh, the whole place
Whatever
burned,
questions
apparently.
we still got, they won't be answered now. Let's just get out of here.
You can bet I'm replaying this. At least this part. And getting the last frame. See what happens
You
after
okay?
that.
What just happened?
Think we've seen the last of that kid.
I don't think so. This is all wrong. No. They're all dead. Wait, why you... Was it over? What's up with that sudden crying going on there? You know, I know I should be checking these bearings, but I kind of don't want to break the flow of the cutscenes, you know?
Hey!
What's up, Vince? What's cracking? Did you find what you're looking for?
I'm real sorry. I know it wasn't your fault.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Both of us been through some real tough time these past years.
So the bus driver is Tony, then.
About half a mile or so, there's a diner with a working phone. You call for help and you leave this place. And don't you ever come back. Ain't nothing left here for you.
The bus driver... Yeah, the bus driver is Tony, I think. Anthony, that is.
How fucking great does this feel?
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm so happy we all made it out of here.
But?
My ass is so getting fired tomorrow.
So? What's the deal now, T?
I don't know, D. But stick around. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, disgusting. I don't know, I just don't like them as characters. Like, I just don't. I find them irritating, to say the least.
I'm real sorry for what I've put you all through. That's gonna haunt me forever.
You're not alone here.
Take it easy on
We've all
yourself.
been through
You know
hell.
that, right?
We're finally getting out of
You
this
can't
hell.
blame yourself for anything.
Hmm.
I just wish we all could have made it.
We're diverting all traffic through Little Hope. You okay, buddy? You seem a little confused.
Yeah, I'm fine. I just want to get these folks to where they need to be.
I doubt a short
What?
delay will trouble him
Are
too
you
much.
kidding me? The police officer did not... Wow. Wow. That is as unrealistic as it gets. Unless it's very realistic, in which case, that in itself is a tragedy. I guess I'll hold that commentary until after this flashback, but that is insane.
Can everyone just shut up? This isn't helping us find help or getting us out of here. Hi there. How you doing? Excuse me, but we're looking for our bus driver.
What?
Have you seen him?
Yeah, that's funny. Sounds like you could use a drink.
Better not, thanks. I need to keep a clear head.
Hurry up! What the hell is going on in there?
Get the hell out of here!
So he's always
I'll go
avoided
once I look you in the eye.
Salem
Now
on
let
his
me in.
route? I don't understand. How is this? And like, this is the one time he gets to go through Salem?
I don't think he gets how bad a mess we're in.
And so just now he's unraveling with this trauma that he's been grieving with for his entire life. Wait, what? Oh man. Yeah, I'm not down with this. This is like
That's
whatever.
it. Game over. You're
Yep.
done.
Thanks,
Now,
appreciate
at
it.
least you could always try again, see if you can get a different result. Congratulations. Your single charge found a way through the guilt, the horror, and came away whole. And you eventually found him. The bus driver. Maybe he can now put the past behind him. Until we meet again. Maybe in the Arabian desert. Maybe somewhere else. But we will meet again. At least one more time.
So is that it? Is that it for the scene? Okay, so I think the frame in the middle there is basically telling us what the next game will be. And it feels like the next game will probably be something similar to, what's that horror movie where there's like a cave? I forget. It was actually a really good movie, the first one that is. Where it's about these women who actually go spelunking. And then they find like there's these monsters inside the cave or whatever. But at any rate, okay, the game is fun. I like, that's one reason that I always come back to Supermassive Games, Man Medan, and Until Dawn, especially in this one. Like, I had a lot of fun playing this game in terms of gameplay. Like, what I enjoy about this compared to like something that Quantic Dreams has put together is that it's not as complex in terms of gameplay. Like, you have these picture frames that give you premonitions, that kind of give you insight into what may happen next, not always good or bad. And then you have, 50-50 choices that you basically, sometimes you're given information to make the right choice, sometimes you're just given a toss-up as to see, what is the better outcome, what is a bad outcome. But my issue with this story in particular is, and I don't know if this is just a Supermassive Games thing, like, Until Dawn, I accepted as a game that had some corny elements and that was parodying some horror stuff, like, college kids going away in a cabin and all that kind of stuff. So that has kind of been my mindset when entering the anthologies. I forget the full name, but for something like Man Medan or Little Hope, I was like, okay, they're playing to all these different tropes, and it's kind of humorous in some way. But then I started to notice that they actually, tonally, throughout the story, they actually do take themselves seriously. So it's kind of hard to be like, well, if you're doing that, then the writing is less than desirable, right? Because you see through a lot of what's happening. If it's Man Medan, you kind of get the feeling like, yeah, it probably is. Oh, spoiler alert, sorry, spoiler alert, if you don't want to be spoiled by Man Medan. Okay, so basically, you kind of get the hint early on that there's some poison that's creating like an hallucination for a lot of the people that are on this ship in Man Medan. In this game, you do kind of they do a better job here of creating mystery, and that one way they do that is they have 3 different realities: the 70s family, the Puritan past, and the present, right? So that's really, really cool, and they do a better job of extending the mystery that way. But I couldn't help but thinking, like, is this just some person dealing with internalized trauma? Let's just take the very first scene from the jump. And so we're talking about the bus driver speaking with the sheriff, and he tells him, I don't want to, have these people in the back be derailed, right? I don't want to take, they want to get to where they need to be quickly. And the cop says, oh, I don't think they'll mind. Okay, pause. And I know you're supposed to extend certain ideas, and you're supposed to give an air of, like, forgiveness in terms of rationale, but are you kidding me? And maybe this was just made in a different time or something, or maybe I just have a hard time believing that a cop from the jump, you say that kind of stuff, and a cop looks back at an empty bus, stares back at you with those dead cold eyes, that he's not gonna be like, okay, pull the fuck over right now. I mean, unless they do, which is far more troubling. And that's another thing. If we're going to be like, okay, fine, like that we'll let that slide, then you mean to tell me that this person wanders through a ghost town where only one other person is? When I said earlier that I would be greatly disappointed if this was all on his mind, then I mean, look, I am disappointed. It's not because I'm like, oh, I found out before you did or anything like that. It's not that at all. It's just, to me, it's easy. Like, even if, because I had doubts, of course, right, throughout the whole thing. I was like, oh, maybe he's Carver, the bus driver is, maybe he's Carver. At any rate, yeah, to have this all be in his mind, it's like, oh my God. Like, I mean, they did a better job in this story by extending the mystery. But the fact that you had so many underdeveloped characters, well, not so many, but all of them, all your characters were severely underdeveloped. Oh, get my controller working. Published? Uh-oh, are we gonna get a...
You believe in God?
Absolutely not.
We'll start believing. We are under attack by, I don't know what. You wouldn't believe me even if I tried. Hell, I don't believe it and I was there.
In Sumerian myth, they say the souls of the dead went deep underground to the House of Ashes, where they lived on dust, plagued by the demons of the underworld.
What? Okay, I mean, look, I'm gonna play it just because I'm a sucker for these kind of narrative games. But that scene it's a direct reference, if not a homage, to what is that movie called? I'm gonna post it in edit. Either way, I know it doesn't sound like it, but I actually did really enjoy my playthrough of this game. In terms of story and character development and stuff like that, look, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I've come to approach games with, especially in storytelling games, with very low expectations. Everyone, this is Jan from the future, and I'm intruding on this episode because I hated my analytical knee-jerk reaction. I felt like I judged this game too harshly, and I didn't really add to the conversation of this story. Rather, I just kept dunking on it, and that's not what I want to put out into this channel. It's not how I want to talk about things. Quite frankly, I don't know why I did it, but you'll never hear it because that is the power of editing. So instead, now that I've had time away from the game to really think about how I feel about the story, let's get into that. I wish there was better character development, and I think probably you as a viewer watching, you saw this, probably you as a player who had probably played this game before, realized this. The character development, the characters in this game are very flat. If the idea is to reason that these characters are archetypes and they don't need to be developed because these are all elements that are concocted by Anthony or Andrew, so they don't need any kind of real development there. And I don't think any or the writers go into thinking that that's our goal, to have flat characters. I don't think people do that. So why are developed characters important? The more developed your characters, the more driven your narrative becomes, and then the more impactful the ending becomes. Like it's kind of like these building blocks that work with each other, that are foundations that you need to have a much more riveting story. Starting from the character standpoint, by really working those characters out, you will then do yourself a favor and have a better story overall. Even if your plot may be a little shaky and there may be plot holes, or even the themes may be a little, shaky, as long as you have really interesting and compelling characters, oftentimes it can carry the story. You don't get that with Little Hope, unfortunately. And I just actually don't know. I don't know why. They probably lean on the cliches of other horror movie tropes, which they do. They often do. Until Dawn was like this, Man Medan was like this. Man Medan was very much like a ghost ship. Another thing that kind of troubles me, and I think this is just a horror game genre kind of thing, where they put too much lore into text. They're packed into journals or things that you read or letters, and they try their best to be really clever about it, right? Like oftentimes you'll be reading off of a plaque, oftentimes you'll be reading off of a journal, maybe there are letters that you find on the ground. That's how they decide to tell their story, and honestly, I think that's a mistake. What would be better is showing, not telling, or showing, not having the player read it. I think you can still have that element, but to lean on it is a mistake. And so why do I bring that up? Well, all these secrets further develop the characters that we play. By doing so, we get to learn more about the characters through what we read rather than so much their actions, so to speak. That isn't true precisely for all these characters, but it's generally true for most of them. And I just want to make things clear here that I'll be using their present day names, John, Angela, and Daniel, and Taylor, and Andrew. For the sake of simplicity, I just know those names. I just know those names better, so I apologize for that. But I mean, whether I'm talking about, past Andrew or a Puritan Andrew or 70s Andrew or anything like that, Anthony, Abraham, they're the same people. So they're actually, unfortunately, or maybe by design, they're actually so flat that you can say Andrew, Abraham, and or Anthony, and it's like they are that same character. There's no real range that distinguishes them from the other reality. At any rate, John, he is the prototypical American 70s dad, very alpha male, very masculine, aggressive, hard worker, worked in a factory, labor union, that kind of guy. But his range then goes to being cowardly, quite often in the present day world. Now, we can talk about it as this is Andrew concocting his dad in this light, making him vulnerable in this light, but it's basically exploring a different range of John, right? Making him a coward versus the stoic, tough, sometimes mean-spirited kind of guy, succumb to pressure and the stresses of his household life. That's his range. And it's so extreme, it's so drastic. There's no real room for growth other than you just see this is another side of his personality that sort of wavers in and out. It's not until his character, Puritan John, dies does he become much more courageous. But even then, for me, that doesn't even feel earned, if I can be quite honest about that. There are secrets that you find that basically show him as someone who is about to lose his job, as I said earlier, and is working in a factory, but is also in this sort of union that's competing against the mayor or the factory owner, because his factory is closing down. His textile, I think it is a textile factory, is closing down. So there's this conflict that John as a character already has. Now, all of that is explored through text. I don't think that's a very good way of going about it. You shouldn't lean on that to further explore your story, because wouldn't it then be much more riveting to have a character like John talk about his life prior to this development, or have some sort of dimension that isn't just I'm your creative writing professor? Because even that, it feels hammied. It doesn't feel organic. It doesn't feel richly crafted. It feels rudimentary. And I know I'm not the only one thinking that. I know there's a lot of people online who have already, taken this apart. And I know there's also this sense of like, well, the main point of the mystery here, right? The main point of the mystery is who is the bus driver? Are these people even alive? What's happening in terms of which reality is real, which reality is fake, that kind of stuff. Like, that is the big overarching mystery. And in this game, they do a tremendous job of retaining that mystery conventionally and relatively to Man Medan. Like, that was, like, by comparison, this game does a better job of creating and holding on to their mystery. In so doing, to the very end, have this sort of rushed ending that it just doesn't, there's no real growth that happens for a lot of these characters. And granted, there's only one real character, that being Anthony or Andrew, but it doesn't feel natural, and it doesn't feel earned, at least not for me. Because they do so much holding on to the mystery, they actually lose the impact of developing a lot of these different characters. They have to keep these characters reasonably flat and underdeveloped so as not to give away their hand to the actual plot. I think you can do both here, and I think you can omit certain parts while still developing your character, and I think at some point of your story, you should show your hand a bit so that you can develop your characters and have them feel much more enriching to the experience. Because ultimately, most of my excitement playing this game and surviving the attacks from the demons was not because I really liked the characters. It was because I just wanted to have everybody live, to have the bragging rights of, yeah, I completed the game and everyone's alive. I don't think that's what you should be aiming for when you develop a narrative experience. I think you want your players to feel like they really bond with a lot of these different characters, and so they want them to live. And I think that only adds to your story, right? If you create characters that your players really enjoy and really connect with, and then you put them in life and death situations, the reason why they fight for those characters is not because they want the 100% completion rate. It's because they want the characters to live. And I think that should be the goal first and foremost when writing these stories. So back to John, and I apologize. I know that's really, it's really long-winded, but I think this interprets itself to all these characters in general. John is a father who is losing his job. He has a family dynamic that he's very unhappy with. I still don't quite understand the whole orphan thing. I think they're referring to Mary only, but it could be all the kids. All the kids could probably be adopted. I still haven't, pieced that part out together. That is his arc, and I feel what would have been really interesting is that if you had present day or even 70s John talk about how his work is, if he was part of the union, if he was a protester fighting for his job. You get a bit of hint of that with the envelope that he writes, "Kiss my ass" and all that stuff, but that's not enough. I mean, that's a simple text on screen rather than having the character explain themselves, or we learn it through a visual, through something visual. I mean, like, I don't know, like these jump scares are also not earned. They're people screaming at you and grabbing the characters. None of that is explained. None of it, they ever talk about why they scream at you. Like, why are they screaming at you? Maybe they did and I missed it, and for that I apologize. But that just seems like a cheap way to be like, oh, this will get him, this will get him. I think twice it got me too with those jump scares. But I had to ask myself, why am I afraid here? Am I afraid because something terrible is about to happen on screen? Or am I afraid because I heard a strong audio cue that startled me? And is that the fear that you want your players to have? Do you want them to fear audio cues, or do you want them to fear your narrative and fear story elements within your narrative? That's why I'm not a big fan of jump scares unless they are earned, right? They're building up tension, and then there's an awesome payoff. And not all the times does a jump scare have to be an audio cue. Oftentimes it can be a flash on screen, or maybe something at the edge of the frame. Be mindful and creative when making those kind of jump scares. They don't often have to rely on audio or even visuals. Sometimes it can just be audio, and it doesn't have to be a scream. Sometimes it could be a small thing as a mumble. Like, there are a lot of interesting and fun ways to create fear and a nightmarish feel in a game that isn't just simply I scream in your face. And often Like, often scream in your face. That is the only way they enter the Puritan past, is if someone gets in your face and starts yelling at you. Like, I don't know, to me that, it just wasn't thoughtful. But I do get why they would have it though. So I'll defend it a little bit here in saying there are probably a lot of people who really enjoy that kind of stuff, who love the big audio jumps or the audio spikes. They love the flash that happens on screen, and they're just like, oh, it came all of a sudden, and now it happens all throughout the game. I really love it because all I really want to do is, you know, be jump scared. Not gonna lie, that's a reasonable take. And they could have been designing this story to incorporate and to try to appease as many fans as they can. In regards to John, you had this background, you had this past of him being a struggling father. We should delve into that. We should find ways to incorporate that in the present day. And yes, that would probably indicate that you're showing your hand a bit as to what the mystery is. But remember, your end plot was that this already is in someone else's mind. You might as well go with it, right? And have your characters be developed and have us bond with them. I just don't see what's wrong with creating compelling characters. Angela is another example of this, where she is essentially, she's a stay-at-home mom, but there's this book that I found later, it's one of the secrets, that it talks about spoiling, or what is it? Spare the rod, spoil the child, beating your children. So this is actually, I think it's either a book or a letter that she gets from Reverend Carver, and they don't talk about domestic abuse in this game, they imply it. And so, to a point where they have plausible deniability, like, no, that's not meant to be interpreted that way. But there is a sense that maybe there could have been child abuse in this home, because a lot of the stuff required, a lot of the punishment was physical. The Christian, you know, fear panic in that, during that time, and throughout the 80s as well, when it came to, like, it went from, you know, heavy rock music to cannabis to D&D, you know, like, those are like the evolution of the different, to Harry Potter. I mean, do we all remember Harry Potter and how everyone was afraid that if you read Harry Potter, your soul would vanish from your corporeal body? So, I mean, there's these panics that happen within Christianity that they don't even really talk about that as well. They also dance around that subject. They do a lot of disservice to themselves by not putting their foot down and exploring the different themes that they want to explore. It's a tragedy to this story, actually. Back to Angela. We find this book, and it talks about, you know, spare the rod, spoil the child. This could probably be what Mary is encountering, and maybe Angela has a part in that. The worst characters in terms of range is Angela and Taylor, I think. Yeah, like, they're criminally underdeveloped. Angela, she's very abrasive. They say understanding in her trait. I don't get that at all. Like, I don't see how that's even possible. Like, what about her makes her understanding? When writing this character or developing her, she should be more than just abrasive, right? She should be more than just in your face, I'm yelling at you, or I'm mad about something. What if we talked about domestic abuse? What if we talked about her as being partly responsible for Mary's pain? What if we talked about how she views her family and how she fears for her family's soul? And again, by doing so, you would have to basically unravel a bit of the mystery towards the end. These are a lot of elements that can be explored through a character. And maybe you can have them as Andrew is, or Tony or whatever, but Andrew is basically realizing who these characters are and who they represent. Throughout the most of this, they're just running away from each other, and they're running away from their demons. Like, what if their demons grab hold of them? They have these flashbacks to who they are. Because even if we're going to go with the argument that these characters are archetypes of who Andrew believes them to be, if we're going to go with that, then we should also realize that Andrew must have a more sophisticated understanding of the people involved in his life who died in that fire, right? Like, that isn't a stretch, is it? There should be more to these characters that Andrew, for I don't know how old he is, he looked like he was 50, has been dealing with throughout his entire life since that traumatic experience. And you mean to tell me that during this bus crash, the moment he concocts these characters into manifesting as people, that they are that flat? Like, I don't think so. Like, even if we're gonna go with that, you know, with that logic, they would be filled with ideas and energies and themes that represent who they were as people. And I think by not treating them as people, you do them a disservice in the present day, because then they just become like these scaredy cats who run away from everything. Like, while that may work as a trope in most instances for other horror movies, and trust me, if this was a horror movie and not a video game, everybody would be shitting on this game, like, or movie. Everybody would be shitting on this movie. Like, if this was like a Netflix produced thing, people would be like, oh, they would write it off as a B horror flick, right? And I don't think they went out of their way to create that here. I think they legitimately thought this would be a cool idea if he created these characters in his mind and was dealing through trauma and was working it out during this horrifying experience, using the Puritan past as a sort of as his therapy to get there. Like, I think that was their initial reaction. I just don't think they pulled it off very well. So let's look at Daniel and rock and roll and pot as a gateway drug and all that kind of stuff. He has a hollow relationship with mom, but we're expect to believe that he does have some sort of relationship with Angela. One way to even strengthen Daniel as a character, I'll just throw this off the bat because I know I'm rambling for a long time, so instead of just playing it off of like, oh, who are these people in the past? They look similar to me. Why don't we have Daniel, the musician, actually we include ways for him to express that during the present day. He loves rock and roll, and you can play with the idea that he's probably a mama's boy, and he felt like he greatly disappointed his mother, Angela, by playing rock and roll, and she hated that for him, but he wants to respect his mom, and he wants to prove to his mom that he's a good son, and that he doesn't do rock and roll, but he does play music, you know, like when she doesn't, like, that she doesn't know of or something like that. You use that to build off of Daniel. Don't just say he's the Encino Man, Brandon Fraser, sorry, the Brandon Fraser of the group. Like, you don't do that, okay? You have an element to his character. Explore that. Taylor, I mean, need I say more? If you played this game, if you've watched this game, you know Taylor for a fact is like, she's the worst. Not because she did anything particularly wrong, it's because she might as not even have been there, if I'm being quite honest. Not only is she severely underdeveloped, but there's this instance, and I was complaining about it earlier, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people were complaining about it too. It's like, why does she keep talking about her relationship with Daniel? You know, we find out that she's probably referring to her relationship with Vince, and Daniel is playing the Vince role, which again is kind of weird. Like, why would your brother concoct that image of the both of you? Maybe they were saying like, oh, he had a concussion or something, so he was conflating memories of his brother and sister and her relationship with Vince. But I mean, that's a bad red herring. Like, that isn't very good. Like, I think a lot of people could agree on that. Like, that's just, it was like, what does that mean? But if we were to take it at face value, and we're just gonna run with this, okay? If the idea is that we're talking about 70s Tanya, okay, 70s Tanya, and we're talking about interracial dating in the 70s, and in a small town America. So what are they trying to say with this? That like, oh, Tanya doesn't want to, for several reasons too, because I think it also kind of shows us that probably Vince was working under the dad, so he probably also didn't want to right away say he was dating his daughter. But if we're talking about 70s small town America and interracial relationships, maybe that's why she didn't want to bring it up or to tell everybody in town that she's dating Vince. Maybe. I'm glad actually they didn't go for that as a subplot, because if I'm being honest, I don't think they're equipped to write that kind of story. I don't think they're thoughtful enough to write a compelling and meaningful story as that as a subplot. I'm glad they didn't even attempt to do that. I'm glad they didn't do it. And they just kept Taylor/Tanya as background, I guess, which is a shame to say about any character that anyone writes. Now, Andrew Abraham Lincoln. What do I say about Andrew? The reason why I think developing characters, it should always be a goal. Even way until the end of your story, you're still trying to find ways to develop each and every character. Why is that important? Because Andrew deals with psychological mental trauma, and he creates these characters to not just work himself into figuring things out, but to resemble people he loved and people he lost. And by keeping them flat, you lose an opportunity to explore his past, Andrew's past. And that is a massive misstep. When writing this, I think you only do your ending a greater service if you flesh out all these characters, because then we can see that Andrew's love for his family spans several generations, several iterations, It's just so deeply ingrained in his heart and in his mind that he loves his family, because we show that once more by exploring all these different characters and all their different nuances, and then have them vanish because they are all in his mind or all in his heart or part of his soul, part of his spirit. But you have to develop them. You can't keep them flat. If you keep them flat, it becomes a cheap, it's the equivalent of a cheap jump scare, that twist is, if you keep them flat. Why not have fully fleshed out characters that are so compelling you don't want them, like you kind of know, like toward the end, like, oh my god, they're gonna disappear, they're in Andrew's mind, oh my god, and then it happens, you're like, oh, that's such a tragedy, because all these characters were incredibly riveting that you wanted to keep playing them because they were so interesting, and you could tell there was so much love Andrew had for these characters that you didn't want to see them disappear, and he has to confront the unforgiving reality that his entire family is gone. And whether it was his fault, whether it was Mary's fault with the doll, or whether it was Carver stoking the fire, essentially, and making things worse in their domestic life, the only thing you can do is live with yourself. And that is Andrew's character. But you don't get that. He gets shortchanged. Because again, none of these characters are developed. And it all starts there. It is the bedrock, I think, of a lot of narrative stories. My analysis of Little Hope is that it misses it, and it misses it by a large margin. That being said, what this game does tremendously well is that they do a better job at prolonging mystery. They do a fun job of creating different intense situations, and atmosphere is still incredible. Their simplistic decision making, and I don't mean that as a negative, by having a 50-50 decision, granted with some decisions you have some evidence to make good decisions, sometimes you don't have evidence to make good decisions or to make any kind of decision. That simplistic 50-50 choice, I think also works in their favor because it keeps the game simple and moving. It keeps the pace going, and they do an incredible job with that. So in terms of game mechanics, I love it, and that's why I keep coming back to it, because it's so much fun. It's so much fun to play, honestly. At any rate, I want to thank all of you for bearing with me on this ramble. I know I'm probably missing a couple of things that I really want to say, but you know what? I just want to wrap this up now. And I am thankful for all y'all for watching this. I know this game is... I'm playing this this game is about 3 months old, and in YouTube time, that's about 30 years old. So if you're watching this, that means you took the time out of your life to sit through this series once again just to hear me blabble, and I'm grateful for it. I really am. So thank you for watching. I do love Little Hope for what it's worth. I know it doesn't sound like I do, but I do. And I can't wait for House of Ashes, although it looks like... Anyways, we'll talk about that when we get there. But, because I don't want to go on another 30-minute ramble. I don't want to do it. You can't make me do it. I won't do it. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll see all of you in the next one. Bye, everybody.